right, well, quick update. Let's just talk about it while we're waiting. 8 minutes, we're going to know what the rate cut is, or not rate cut. Here's the tea. Here's the tea. This is happening really soon. Jerome Powell, our on-again, off-again GOAT. Certainly a key figure in all of our financial lives over the past, how many years has it been? 2017, maybe? So like 8 years? It's been a while. It's been a minute that Jerome Powell's been an important figure. And certainly was a key figure in COVID during the rates to zero money printing era. But he's nearing the end of his dynasty. Jerome Powell will likely be gone by early 26, so we're running out of FOMC meetings for him to have a key impact. And this is a very important one because this is the one where he's expected to finally cut rates, as Trump has been demanding and demanding and demanding. Again, quick refresher, Trump has called him a numbskull. Trump has called him a very stupid person. Trump has called him too late Powell. And so today, in just 5 or 6 minutes probably, we're going to know whether or not they've decided to actually cut rates. As a refresher, I do this every time, but it's good to have everybody caught up. If the FOMC thinks that inflation is the biggest problem, then they will want to raise rates or keep rates the same. If they think the job market declining and fewer jobs and harder to find a job, they think that's the biggest problem, then they will lower rates. That's the idea. And the sense is the job market is getting scarier and scarier faster than inflation is getting scary, though they both are a problem. The spooky thing is that we're kind of in a stagflationary environment where it seems like prices are going up, but also the job market's getting worse. So you don't have like an easy choice, which is why he's just been steady. He's been making no choices, really. He's been realistically, especially because we just had a BLS labor market revision of 1 million fewer jobs in the past year than we thought. It's likely they will cut rates today. But it is funny that Trump is simultaneously saying you have to cut rates, but also the bad jobs data is a lie. The jobs are actually good. Those two things are opposite statements. The only reason Jerome Powell would have to cut rates is if the jobs data was true, and it is bad. You can't say that everything is great, but also we desperately need to cut rates. It doesn't make any sense, but that is what is happening. So Trump pressure plus the weaker labor market data means very likely that the Fed's consensus will be crashed and we will get a 0.25 rate cut today. By the way, here's our interest rates for the past, 50 years. Now, ignoring the insane time of the 80s when we got up to like 20%, let's look at like our lifetimes, okay? Your lifetimes probably start here. After 9/11. But okay, let's just go like the past 30 years. Couple interesting things to point out. Generally, rates climb up until something breaks. Then right when they start lowering them in a panic is when we get a recession. That happened in 2001, that happened in 2007, and now we are starting to lower rates again. Just worth noting that fact. Second thing worth noting is that this period where a lot of people in this chat or people watching sort of started to come of age in is a historical anomaly. After 2008, we had years of 0% interest rates, basically free money borrowing. That created a very weird economy that a lot of people have come up in. And the economy has gotten very addicted twice to essentially free borrowing. When we did this rapid rise in rates recently in like late 21, 22, people expected things to break. They haven't super broken yet, but it's clearly seeming like they're starting to. So that's where we're at. The main things to watch for today are, this is the expected outcome. If this happens, the market will react, I guess, semi-positively, but this is what's priced in. If we see a 0.5 basis point, a jumbo rate cut, it's called a jumbo rate cut, twice as big. If this happens, it is a clear sign of panic, of like, oh shit, things are really bad. Like the job market is actually really bad. We need to get ahead of it. So if we see a jumbo rate cut, it is definitely a sign that what data the Fed is seeing is scaring them. If we see no rate cut, the market will react really bad. If we see like nothing, zero, no change, then the market will freak out because they are expecting it to get easier to borrow money. This would say that the Fed is very scared about inflation. This would say that Jerome Powell has decided the risks from tariffs causing good inflation is too high. We have to keep interest rates high to try and break the back of inflation. By the way, inflation is supposed to be at a 2% target, but we haven't gotten close to 2% yet. We're kind of bouncing around 3 and we're not close to 2. And so if we start lowering rates, we're never getting back to 2. Now, the last thing there's no chance we're going to raise rates. I think there's almost zero chance there's going to be like a plus 0.25. If that happened, it would be Armageddon, I guess. I mean, people would freak out. It would be disastrous. So the one thing we're looking for, it's going to happen in like a minute here, is if Jerome Powell says the words mid-cycle adjustment. If Jerome Powell says that, then that means, okay, yes, we're cutting rates by 0.25, but we're probably going to stall out there. We're not going to keep cutting. This alone would freak the market out because everybody's expecting them to cut, and then at the next meeting, cut again, the next meeting, cut again. The idea is we're going to begin cutting all the way back down to zero. That is what everybody on Wall Street wants. That's what Trump wants, to juice his numbers into the midterms. That's what they want. That is what we're watching for. I think the cut today will be this, but we're kind of watching for the guidance of what's going to come next. What do they plan to do in the future? I mean, we could wait here. It just happened, so we'll know in just a second. It looks like we are getting, I would like a official, breaking. The Fed has cut by 0.25. Breaking the small cut. Too late Powell has started to move. So this is the expected thing. So we're going to watch his press conference to see, first of all, what he thinks about the economy, what he thinks about inflation, and what he thinks about what they're going to do going forward. But since we have a little bit of time till he actually does the press conference, I want to talk about some drama that's been going on with the Federal Reserve in the background. So this drama is about Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. Not this Lisa Cook. This Lisa Cook. The main story here is that, if you guys don't know how it works, the FOMC has these 12 Fed governors. They all vote to decide whether or not to cut rates. She's one of them. And Trump, in an effort to stack the FOMC with people on his side to force rates down, has been trying to get her fired so he can replace her with somebody on his side, get rid of Jerome Powell in early 26, get a majority, and then be able to lower rates at will. So he's had a bit of a power play against Jerome Powell by trying to get her fired. This is Bill Pulte. You need to know who he is because it's a big part of this story. And you may have heard me talk about Bill Pulte in a video I did about him versus Scott Bessent, where Scott Bessent said, "I'm gonna punch you in your f***ing face." Bill Pulte, his background is, he's a rich kid. He inherited a lot of money from his grandfather, the founder of home building giant Pulte Group. So he got a big inheritance and then started giving away some of it, very small amounts, on Twitter to become famous. This is where you probably heard of him. In your lifetime, he was, for most years, the guy that gave away money on social media. He would post things like this: "Good evening, this beautiful mom and daughter need a handicap accessible van but can't afford it. Can you help? I'll match donations up to $1,000. Bro, you are inheriting a $1 billion fortune and you're matching $1,000. Wow, extremely generous. He would do like retweet to win giveaways, follow me to win giveaways. And then he would say things like, "I'm sitting on my couch right now, thinking about how many people we've helped this year and how happy I am to be alive and living this dream. To whoever out here that needs this, don't give up. I've done private planes and cars. I've been in the biggest meetings. I'm friends with many of the wealthiest people in the world, but nothing comes close to helping people on Twitter." Nobody, me, and it's Patrick giving away money. And then he called his followers his teammates, people that just followed to win money. They're my teammates. So he becomes like social media famous because of this. At one point, he wins the award for Twitter Philanthropist of the Year, which is a very prestigious award that it turns out he created. Okay, so this guy's basically a nobody. He's just the grandson of a rich guy. But because of all of this, he gets this big social media following, which he then uses to try and get the attention of Donald Trump. If Donald Trump retweets this, I'll give $30,000 to a veteran on Twitter. This works. And through his social media following and his pro-Trump stance, he ends up becoming nominated by Donald Trump to head our federal housing finance agency. Despite no real qualifications. I mean, his grandfather knew house building, but he just inherited it. So now he is the head of our federal housing finance agency and is obviously a close Trump ally. Now, this comes in handy when Donald Trump wants to get rid of Lisa Cook, because he gets Bill Pulte to pull the data on Lisa Cook's mortgages for the houses, she has 2 houses, and claim that she was claiming both of her properties as her primary residence, which would be mortgage fraud. I mean, it's minor, but it is mortgage fraud. The idea is that she claimed both of them as her primary residence, and therefore she must be removed. She can't be trusted. We can't put her in the Federal Reserve. She's committing mortgage fraud. So for the first time in the Fed's 111-year history, a sitting governor was attempted to be removed by a president, which again, the Fed is supposed to be independent. The whole point is the president can't be bullying it and pushing it around because it reduces the trustworthiness of our independent Federal Reserve. That's the idea, is if it's seen like he controls it, then he can lower rates at will. So we tried to remove her. He said, it's a serious breach of trust. We have to protect the integrity of the Federal Reserve. Basically saying, this mortgage fraud is very serious. It's very important to me. We just simply can't stand for it. The only problem is, there's 2 problems. Number 1 is the documents have started to actually come out, and it turns out she didn't do that. She claimed her second residence as a vacation home, not a primary residence. First of all, not even true. But secondly, because of all the hullabaloo around this, because of all the drama, because of all the interest, because of all the looking into it, it turns out 3 of Trump's cabinet members did do this. They did do mortgage fraud. They did claim multiple primary residences, multiple houses as primary residence, including Labor Secretary Lori Chavez, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, and EPA Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin. All 3 of them that Trump appointed have claimed multiple residences as their primary residence. None of them are being investigated. None of them are getting fired. Despite saying that this is like extremely important for integrity, none of them are being followed up on. Additionally, this has just happened within the past 24 hours. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, has also called 2 houses his principal residence. This is the highest up. This is even more important than her job. And it's not being discussed or followed up on. And additionally, Bill Pulte, the guy who Trump got to pull this data and accuse Lisa Cook, it turns out his parents both of his parents also have done this mortgage fraud. So it just seems a little bit hypocritical. It seems a bit crazy to focus on, I think it's very transparent what you're trying to do, which is gain control of the Federal Reserve. So thankfully, today, the appeals court rejected Trump's bid to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook, and she did vote today. She was one of the votes that just happened in the last few minutes to lower rates 0.25. So she's still active. Trump cannot remove her for now. Remains to be seen what will happen next and how this will play out, but that is the current status of what's going on. So given all that, we are now a few minutes away and we're going to watch Jerome Powell's press conference again to see what he thinks about the job market, what he thinks about inflation expectations, and what they think about future rate cuts going forward. Is it live?
Job gains have slowed and downside risks to employment have risen. At the same time, inflation has risen recently and remains somewhat elevated.
Yeah.
In support of our goals and in light of the shift in the balance of risks, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by a 0.25 percentage point.
You gave in, Jerome.
We also decided to continue to reduce our securities holdings. Payroll job gains have slowed significantly to a pace of just 29,000 per month over the past 3 months.
Yeah, insanely low.
A good part of the slowing likely reflects a decline in the growth of the labor force due to lower immigration and lower labor force participation.
Bro, it's a nation
Even
of
so,
300
labor demand
million, and
has
we're making
softened,
22,000 jobs
pace
a
of
month,
job
and they're
creation
low-quality jobs.
appears to be running below the break-even rate needed to hold the unemployment rate constant. The median projection for the unemployment rate is 4.5% at the end of this year and edges down thereafter.
No, never. I wish I could
Inflation
pause.
has eased
Can I
significantly
pause?
from its highs in mid-2022, but
Never.
remains
Does it
somewhat
just
elevated
stop there
relative
and
to
go
our
back down
2%
next year?
longer-run
Never.
goal. Most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. The median projection in the SEP for total
These
PCE
projections
inflation
are
is
horseshit.
3.0%
It's not going
this
to
year,
magically go
and falls
down
to
next year
2.6%
after
in
your cut rates.
2026 and to 2.1% in 2027. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices.
I'll go on a dual
for the
mandate
American
with you,
people.
Jerome Powell.
The median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 3.6% at the end of this year,
Okay.
3.4%
So they're
at the end of
expecting cuts.
2026,
More cuts.
and 3.1% at the end of 2027.
These are the votes.
This path is 1/4 percentage point lower than projected in June. Everything we do is in service to our public mission, and we at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals.
Okay.
Thank you. I look forward to our discussion.
But let's be real. Here's some questions. All right, we go. Fix your fucking system, Jerome Powell. Oh my God. Your third mandate should be a working tech stack.
I feel like our policy has been doing the right thing so far this year. I think we were right to wait and see how tariffs and inflation and the labor market evolved. I think we're now reacting to the much lower level of job creation and other evidence of softening in the labor market.
Okay, I just want to say, he's talking about the lower level of job creation because they revised down the numbers from the past year by 1 million jobs. So the times he was saying that we had good job creation weren't true. Now, I don't blame him for being data dependent, but it is kind of crazy that like they have to have other ways of looking at the economy than just waiting for those numbers because those numbers are so consistently unreliable.
The SEP, once again, the median participant has inflation higher than previously expected by the end of next year, and the Fed not getting back to the 2% target until 2028 drives.
Jesus Christ! They said that? The median voter in this Fed meeting is saying that we won't get back till 2% until 2028. That is 3 years of inflation running hot. I mean, the prices are going to be fucking insane. And that's if they're right. Realistically, they're probably going to change it by 28, especially if they're cutting rates now, dude. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think cutting rates, I get the labor market is bad. And I can justify this cut. I get it. But man, it's like inflation is what really kills regular people. If we don't cut rates, and the economy does somewhat tank, people will lose jobs, and that is painful, and I get that. But the real people that will be hurt are falling asset prices, falling stock market, falling housing prices. And that stuff is actually really good for regular people because it lets them get in on the economy. I don't know. I think cutting is again trying to reinflate this fucking balloon for boomers. I get having no job. Again, it's a balance. I get it. I understand that eventually people have to have fucking jobs. I think inflation is the slow and insidious killer, bro. Inflation is the one that makes people literally disconnect from society. Once you feel like you're falling behind the rate of inflation, it's over.
Really, since April, to me, the risks of higher and more persistent inflation have probably become a little less. And that's partly because the labor market has softened, GDP growth has slowed. So I would just say that...
Okay, small pause, and I'll let the rest of it run. This is probably the most negative we've ever seen Powell in a meeting. We've watched a lot of these. People have watched this with me. This is the most negative he's been on the economy in any one of them. He's like pretty much consistently saying inflation is really bad and job market is really bad. And he's like he's not like defending it like he usually does. He's not like, well, it's strong. This is like very negative. Like he even looks kind of defeated, bro. He's quiet quitting.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Radio and Television.
I mean, okay, sorry to pause again, but like I feel for him in that he is like trying to maintain Fed independence while the president is trying to fire people on the Fed, add new people who are connected to the White House, trying to fire him, accusing him of things. He knows he's going to be gone by early 26. He's got 2 mandates that are going in opposite directions that are very hard. I get that it's a hard job. I'm not even personally blaming Jerome Powell here. I'm just saying it's like, man, this is tough.
I wouldn't say that all of what's happening in the labor market is due to tariffs. I mean, you clearly have a slowing in it due to immigration. You clearly have a slowing in demand, which is now perhaps more than that in supply. And we know that because the unemployment rate has ticked up.
Okay, he's saying demand is slowing. What I want to say is, just so you understand, high-income Americans are behind roughly half of all U.S. consumer spending. The highest it's been since the data goes back to 1989. So what we have is that the economy is being kept up by people in the top 10% spending, the K-shaped economy. If the rich boomers stop going on vacations and going out to restaurants and buying golf trips, and if they stop doing that, the economy is going to fall apart. It's the last thing keeping things going. Nobody else has money to spend that's not borrowed. Why does Big A look sad? It's almost like, listen, we've been saying this on the stream for a very long time, but it's almost sad when Jerome Powell finally admits it because it makes me realize that like it was kind of nice when he still denied it. You know? It kind of gives you like this shadow of like, okay, well, maybe, but now it's like, bro, he's just being so real about it. He's like, inflation is bad, but the job market is even worse. So we got to do what we got to do.
What are you about the slowdown in the jobs market for households at home, especially younger Americans struggling to land a job?
So it's an interesting labor market, and obviously we think it's appropriate that we reduce our rates so that we become more neutral, which presumably will be better for the labor market. You see people who are sort of more at the margins, so kids coming out of college and younger people, minorities, are having a hard time finding jobs. The overall job finding rate is very, very low. However, the layoff rate is also very low. So you've got a low firing, low hiring environment. And the concern is that if you start to see layoffs, the people who are laid off there won't be a lot of hiring going on. So that could very quickly flow into higher unemployment.
By the way, I'm just going to say it here. I've said this a million times. This is what's going to happen. It's not the first time in history this has happened. You have a low hire, low fire thing because jobs are afraid of letting go of their employees because they're worried it's going to be hard to ride them back. But then once the dam breaks and people start firing, it becomes a flood. And then there's layoffs everywhere and there's no jobs to be found. It's bad. That is what is going to happen, almost certainly. When the employment rate starts ticking up, it never just stops, like they say. It never just goes flat. I want to pull up a graph, but it never just goes flat. This is the U.S. employment rate, okay? Do you ever notice a time where it's flat? Whenever it hits a low, it starts ticking up, and it always spikes up. When the unemployment rate hits a low, bounces off, and starts going up, it's a snowball effect. When it's getting better, it gets better really fast because jobs getting hired creates more spending, creates more jobs. But jobs getting fired creates less spending, creates less jobs. They both snowball in opposite directions. So the idea that the projection is we're going to get to like employment right here and it's going to freeze at 4.5 is absurd. It's never happened that way and it won't happen that way. I'm not crazy for saying this, and it's like disingenuous for him to imply that it's not. I guess he has to do that to not panic people, but that people are saying 65. Okay, but that's okay. Okay, sure. I mean, this is down, then flat, then down, then it bounces off the lows. It's not like it bounces off the lows, then evens out. And you're saying 77. Wait, rockets up, then flattens out, then rockets up again? You're saying 6-7. I'm so stupid. You're just saying 6-7 because you're fucking Twitch chatters. I'm actually like looking at like, 67, what are you talking about?
See the court case around Lisa Cook as being related to questions of Fed independence?
I see it as a court case that it would be inappropriate for me to comment on.
He's so generous, dude. If I was in his position, I would be fucking talking shit. But I guess then you'd seem political, so.
The revisions for June were the first negative revisions we've seen since December of 2020. How can the Fed base important decisions on rate and what to do with the interest rates on data that seems to be, as you've called it in the past, noisy?
So on the QCEW, the revision that we saw was almost exactly what we expected. It was amazing how close the expectation was. So, and the reason for that is for the last bunch of quarters, there's been almost a predictable overcount. And I think the Bureau of Labor Statistics really does understand this, and they're working hard to fix it. It's got to do, of course, it has something to do with low response rates,
model,
but it's also got to do with what's called the birth-death model. Because a good amount of job.
I'm predicting what he's going to say. Dude, I swear to God, you can get this stuff from my channel, dude. I'm in tune on this shit, bro. I promise you. I've covered the birth death model. It's live, bro.
Happens.
And you're the same age, too?
On that and are making progress. Response rates are just lower to surveys now, both in and out of the government. And it's no great secret. We want higher response rates, and we need those to have, less volatile data. And
bro, I just got to be real. I'm sorry to pause so many times, but this is all very important. The idea that we still base these judgments on how many jobs there are in America based on surveys from phone calls is crazy. He's saying the response rates have gotten low. Of course, nobody answers the fucking phone anymore. So we're getting like tiny fractions of people that answer the phone and basing the entire jobs numbers off that. It's become comical. The response rates have gotten so low. Yeah, I just think it's a joke. I mean, so many other, I'm getting this data from other people, but people have found out other ways to measure the health of the labor market, and I'm reading them, and they turn out to be more accurate. That's why we're able to call that, the job market is bad a year ahead of what they're saying from the BLS, because it's just crazy. We still use that as our main method. I think it's wild.
We have to live life looking through the windshield rather than the rearview mirror, as you know, and all I can tell you is we see where we are now, and we take appropriate action. We took that appropriate action today.
That's a bar.
The growth mix right now seems very concentrated in investment and on the consumer spending side in the higher income groups. Do you feel that that's an unsustainable mix for the economy moving forward?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, you're right. Those are two. We're getting unusually large amounts of economic activity through the AI build out and corporate investment. I don't know how long that will go on. No one does. In terms of spending, you saw that the consumer spending numbers were well above expectations, and that may well be skewed toward higher earning consumers.
It's not may well, it is. Okay? The economy is big companies spending on AI data centers and regular boomers in the top 10% going on vacations and going to restaurants. That is the economy right now. It's not May. It is. That is what it is, and you know it. That's what's happening. Okay? And if either of those two things crack, we're boned.
A lot of anecdotal evidence to suggest that. Nonetheless, it's spending. So, I mean, I think the economy is it's moving along. Economic growth is going to be 1.5%.
Dude, he's depressed. I've never heard him say the economy is, it's moving along. Dude, he always says it's strong, it's thriving, I think the economy is at its core very healthy. That's crazy. It's moving along is what you say, like, it's like when someone asks you how you're doing and you're like, I'm doing, how's it going? It's going. It's like, oh, you want to kill yourself.
As I mentioned earlier, there are no risk-free paths now. It's not incredibly obvious what to do. So we have to keep our eye on inflation. At the same time, we cannot ignore and must keep our eye on maximum employment, which is those are our two equal goals. And you will see that there are a range of
warming up. He's trying to get back into it.
We came together today at the meeting and acted with a.
You just hit a midi. He's getting loose.
Economic activity is holding in, and it's a good bit from consumption. It looks like consumption was stronger than expected. What we got earlier this week, and also we're getting a fairly narrow sector is producing a lot of economic activity, which is the AI build out and business investment. So
yeah,
we watch all of it, and I would say we did move up the median.
Let me give you a theory. Let me just give you a little theory, Jerome Powell. What if this AI build out is not producing the profits needed, so it starts to slow down? At the same time, this consumption spending is primarily fueled by debt. People using credit cards, people buying auto loans, and that starts to slow down as people are unable to pay their loans, BNPL, all that. At which point, whatever was keeping consumption in the economy going collapses, and the risks to the labor market go higher. Let's just posit that theory. That seems more and more likely.
Given the cumulative impact of high interest rates on the housing sector, I'm wondering how concerned you are that current rate levels are exacerbating housing affordability issues and potentially hindering household formation and wealth accumulation for a segment of the population.
Housing is an interest-sensitive activity, so it's at the very center of monetary policy. When the pandemic hit and we cut rates to zero, the housing companies were incredibly grateful, and it was really, they said that was the only thing that kept them going, was that we cut so aggressively and provided credit and things like that. And they were.
I'm so glad that we cut rates to zero to help the housing companies keep their prices up. That had long-term benefits for regular people. This is Google Trends history for people Googling help with mortgage, Jerome Powell. It has not been this high since 2008.
The other side of that is when inflation gets high and we raise rates, and you're right, it does burden the housing industry, and so rates have come down a bit, and as that happens, we don't set.
We got a fire movie called The Big Short, actually, so maybe it's worth it.
Thanks very much.
Okay, he's done. A sad display, but the old goat laced up one last time to get out there. He's actually got a few more before 2026. They do 8 of these a year. There's one in December, and then there's going to be probably one more before I think he's got 2 or 3 left. I got respect for Jerome Powell. He's got a very tough job. He has the president and the power of the president bearing down on him. A lot of political pressure, a lot of legal pressure. The economy's cracking from both angles. I know that I'm yelling at him in this meeting, but I don't personally blame him as a human being. However, boy howdy, if you are listening to this and you're thinking, oh, it's fine, he said the economy's strong, trust your gut. That is not true. And by the way, just go back and listen to the very last meeting and watch the change in tone from then to now. It's clearly deteriorating. It's clearly. Now, he's not trying to panic everybody, but man, it's very, very obvious that the risks to both inflation and the job market are getting worse.